This is episode 60. I am so happy that you're here and thank you for joining my show, your coach, Helen Yuskovic. I am on a worldwide mission to help people get confident in putting themselves first because I used to put myself second my whole life. And because of that, I experienced every unhealthy relationship possible. An unhealthy relationship with myself, my health, my wealth, my intimate relationships, my family, my friends, and my career. I'm now living in an abundance that I used to just dream about. So I want to pave the way for you too. It's time, guys. It's time that you live in the life of your dreams as well. So let's take a step towards that right now. P.S. Subscribe to my podcast on your app now so that you always tune in to my new episodes. We have the beautiful, smiling Anthia Koullouros here on the podcast today, which I'm so excited about. You must follow her on Instagram, especially if you need inspiration with food. She's my idol when it comes to food. She just posts these things up and makes me hungry and then makes me realize that maybe I'm not eating the right foods. And she just makes it look so simple. She has this beautiful business. She does quite a few things. She's a naturopath. And what I'm going to do is throw it right over to you, Anthia. First off, welcome to the show. Thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And what an intro. And you got my surname right. You said it correct.
My mum is Greek, so
She'd be cross if you didn't get that right.
I'm really good with those names. And my father is from Croatia, so I'm really good with those names too.
Perfect.
Anthia, can you just start by telling us a little bit about you? Some people may not have heard who you are, what your history is, and where you are right now. And what I really love about you is your mission and your passion about recalibrating overwhelm and disease, which is so prevalent in the world today. So let us know a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, this year marks 26 years of practicing as a naturopath. And for those out there who don't know what a naturopath does, we're natural health practitioners. We see patients like a doctor or an acupuncturist sees patients. We're in the philosophy and realm of holistic medicine, holistic therapies, mind, body, spirit, addressing the underlying causes, contributing factors of why you feel the way you feel. And we're always looking at how people self-care, healthcare, what they eat, drink, how they move, general lifestyle measures, emotions, environment, that kind of thing. And when we see patients one-on-one, then we might do further testing. So we say we test, we don't guess. We use regular pathology or, specialized pathology. If we're looking at gut biome, we'll do stool testing. And we're just trying to create a very bespoke, individualized program to help a patient transition from ill health to health. So really root underlying causes. I love my career, love my work. I mean, I've been doing, it's so weird because you know that I turned 50 this year, so I have to say it because how has she been practicing for 26 years, right? But true, I'm a herbalist as well, so that's one of my modalities. I use herbal medicine to support the process of transitioning to good health, and that's why I created a tea company called Apotheca by Anthia, which is my new brand. And we create teas and tisanes and herbal medicines to really nourish or reduce inflammation or just regulate any imbalance. It's a really beautiful, gentle modality.
Teas are so, you taught me this because I met you at the Upgrade Your Life seminar and you were talking about the potency of teas, and I stalked you and I bought lots of tea. But can you tell me, how did you come up with the new name?
Yeah, because it's a difficult one because after 16 years of my previous brand, it was a real kind of dramatic and terrible ending. Unfortunately, just a new business partner that didn't go well. And then I had to come back to the roots of, hold on a second, it doesn't mean it's the end of what it is that I love to do, which is create beautiful teas and tisanes. And I thought, I want to create something more aligned to these times, more aligned to me, and just evolve the previous brand into Apotheca by Anthia. And Apotheca is derived from the Greek word apothecary, which to different people means different things. It can mean dispensary, it can mean even a storehouse if we go back, or a warehouse. But for me, it's an apothecary, which is a dispensary of natural medicines.
Did you say you were turning 50?
Yeah.
Okay, you need to share your secrets, because I don't know if you can't see her right now, guys. She has not one line on her face. Her skin is absolutely glowing and clear, and I would have said you are in your 20s. What is your secret?
Bless you. Well, I haven't had any work done, so that's the truth. I think just good nutrition, and I studied, naturopathy from such a young age. So I didn't drink and I didn't do drugs, and I just lived a pretty straighty 180 clean lifestyle. I don't know, maybe good genetics. If you look at my mom's pretty young looking as well. I use natural skincare. I don't know. It's not like I haven't put myself through the ringer stress-wise, and it's why I do this work as well now, which is focused on stress and overwhelm. I don't know. Let's just put it down to good genetics and good lifestyle. It works.
I always say the skin represents a lot about your life and what you're putting in and all of that sort of stuff. Can you talk about recalibrating overwhelm, and how do you actually start this whole process of recalibrating it, and how is overwhelm linked to disease?
So, how I started on this journey, and I've been seeing patients for years, and I see stress. I see a lot of stress as an underlying contributing factor, or a prognosis and diagnosis might be stressful. But I think I did a bit of a deep dive when I went through a very overwhelming experience last year, which was the loss of my company after 16 years in an identity. And I was quite grief stricken and heartbroken over it because of how it ended. And I just really dove into, I could hit rock bottom and I could really crash and burn here, but don't, Anthia, because you've got a clinical practice and your patients need you, and we're in the middle of COVID and this kind of thing. And so I thought, do the things you know to do to look after your nervous system. Do a deep dive. I self-cared and health-cared, but it was in that I realized not only did I self-care, health-care, and didn't get sick, but I was able to recalibrate, recreate, and relaunch a brand new brand. And I thought, what's going on here? And I did a real deep dive as to, how did I end up here in this such a stressful state? What was going on? And I did a deep dive with my therapist, looked at my triggers and traumas. And I then realized, oh my goodness, this is a big thing. This is a big thing that my patients experience. And what is it? Overwhelm is when you've activated that part of your nervous system. When you no longer can, you basically burnt yourself out. It's the step above fight and flight response. In fight and flight response, when you activate your nervous system, you're dealing with a stressor, and you either fight. And with that fight comes symptoms of frustration and irritation and possibly anger, or you flee, you flight, and with that comes anxiety and worry. There's a lot of energy in that part of the nervous system. There's glucose, there's adrenaline, there's oxygen. But when the stress persists, we go into this other zone called the freeze zone, which is overwhelm. And in that zone is that burnout. You feel hopeless, helpless. You can feel a bit flat, depressed. Actually, you can feel very depressed. You feel trapped, dissociated, numb, from going where you could to no longer I can't no longer. That's what overwhelm is. And that's the place that I was bouncing between fight, flight, and freeze. So fight, flight, freeze, or anxious, fear, and overwhelm. And I thought there has to be a way to be able to rebalance this and recalibrate this. And this is where I did that deep dive. And recalibrating means pausing, slowing things down, which can feel quite a threat to someone who's always in a state of high productivity, hypervigilance, hyperfocus, very busy, 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 busy. And so we work with patients with that. But it's to listen in and tune in and really take the time to look after yourself during whatever the stress might be that you've encountered, or where you've gone into that freeze, dissociated, overwhelmed state. So it's all the modalities. It's what you're eating, it's what you're drinking, it's how you're moving. It's like self-care times 1,000 to really bring it back, to regulate it, and then move into our natural zone or our natural state, which some people will call rest and digest. It's our most regulated state. So that's what that means. And I think I like this analogy. I call our regulated state, our natural state, the state of where we feel grounded, calm, centered. There's a lot of joy. There's a lot of space. We feel we have perspective. There's possibilities. From that place, when stress arises, we might move into fight, flight, and we're dealing with the danger. But when that continues for too long, we go into freeze. Our goal isn't to just stay in an state all day, or dart from danger, or just disconnect. Our goal is to be able to flexibly transition and come back down to regulated state. And that's the art of recalibrating, is how do we deal with that stressor, and how do we regulate or recalibrate ourselves back to a regulated state. That to me is the mark of well-being. But we don't get trapped in stress or fight, flight. We don't get trapped in freeze or overwhelm.
I'm sort of thankful that you had all of this stuff happen to you, because now you've become a master at this overwhelm topic. And can you share how, if you live in this overwhelmed state for a long time, years, because I also have clients that have lived with all of this stuff for a very long time, even since childhood to adulthood, can it be linked to disease?
Yes, because your nervous system is what surveils the scene inside and outside of your body. So it's constantly assessing whether we feel safe or this is dangerous, whether we need to protect or connect. And it's the chemicals that are produced, and the neurotransmitters and the hormones that are produced to deal with whatever situation we're in. And long-term cortisol can start depressing our immune system, can start increasing inflammation, can dysregulate blood sugar levels. It affects our choices that we make. For whatever reason, we end up drinking more coffee, or doing more recreational drugs, or eating more sugar or more crappy food. And then we're dealing with the after effects of that. So yes, strongly linked to chronic disease which persists, which doesn't shift. And it could be chronic gut disorder, chronic hormonal imbalance, chronic arthritis, autoimmune disease, thyroid disease. It doesn't matter what it is. We only heal from our regulated state. You can think of it, if someone, like, sometimes I do these analogies for people like corporates. Imagine a plump green bank account full of money. You've got lots of reserve, but all of a sudden you can go in the red because stress is insidious and dry up your reserve, or your assets get frozen and you go into that blue zone of overwhelm. You can think of your regulated state as a pantry full of amazing produce, or a garden full of flowers, or a rich, nutritious soil to grow things in. What we need to do is build up that reserve, so then when we do encounter stress, that we can flexibly transition, because stress is insidious. It draws on those reserves. So suddenly through stress, we can become deficient in nutrition. We could become malnourished or malabsorbed because stress starts drawing on our reserves. So our regulated state, our reserve state, full of plump, whatever you want to call it, imagine it. It could be just plump health, is super critical, because we don't know what's around the corner. We didn't expect a pandemic. We don't expect to be triggered and to spiral into another traumatic situation. We just don't know. And that's why for me, it's having a really good baseline, a strong foundation is fundamental to prevent disease.
I love that analogy of being able to flexibly transition, because I think that is the major problem. People just don't know how to do that. And I'm so excited that you have the answers for this. It's such a brilliant thing to do right now in the world.
Yes.
It's just that your timing is impeccable.
Mm.
It's time for your first curveball, Anthia. Are you ready to play?
Yes. Go.
What is something that most people have no idea about you?
Maybe they don't know that I considered becoming an architect instead of a naturopath.
Wow.
Yeah, because I like design and creative.
How did you go from architect to
I
this?
know. It's really interesting. I think, the idea and concept of naturopathy feels like it was embedded into me at a very young age. And I didn't even know there was such a career, but I did read a book. I talk a lot about this. There was this book that my parents had, How to Get Well, and it was written by a naturopath. And so at the age of 12, I thought, oh, that sounds good. That sounds right up my alley. But then I toyed with, oh, wouldn't it be nice to be an architect? Anyway, I fell into the lap of naturopathy instead.
Can you talk to the signs of overwhelm? So how, if someone listening has no idea if they're in an overwhelmed state, right? What are some of the signs that they could look out for? And what does disease show up like in the physical body? How can some people identify this source of imbalance?
So overwhelm follows when you've been in a significant stressful fight flight response for a while, and then it's like burnout. It's like when you have energy and suddenly you just don't have energy. It's like come the end of the week, you don't want to speak to anyone, see anyone. Come night, you just cannot. It's like almost shut down. It's like a chronic fatigue burnout. It's just got all too much emotionally, and it can feel like you've just drawn, every ounce of you is just drawn out of you. And then physically, it can be almost like a stagnation or a sluggishness or a real depression or flatness physiologically as well. It's like your immune system reserves are just depleted also. So it doesn't feel great when you're depleted in mental energy as well as physical energy. So cognition goes out the window, concentration, alertness, such a flatness, such a disconnect, almost like just, yeah, it's not a pleasant place to be in when it's too much like that. Yeah.
So if you're feeling any sort of symptoms like that, instead of pushing it to the side, it might be a wise idea just to maybe reach out to someone, a health care practitioner.
I think so. It's one of those things that, with all of this, you say if you feel suicidal, or you feel, you've gone to those places, obviously reach out and call Lifeline and all the important numbers to reach out to a friend. It's just when something persists for too long, and you want to catch it, and hopefully someone can, when you're in such a state, you're getting some expert advice and someone can just help guide you out of it. And when you then can, when you feel a little bit more regulated, then you can start really learning about how to do that flexibly transition. But in that state, you just need lots of nourishment and care. And it might not be your own self-care, it might be someone else caring for you. And, you know, holding your hand, lighting that path for you until you feel, you know, strong enough to then, okay, how do I self-care for myself? So this doesn't build up in me again, so I don't feel so overwhelmed again. And it all counts. It's how you hydrate, it's the good nutrition, it's the grounding, making sure that you've got ample nutrition. And some of us unfortunately can't get good nutrition. It's can be really tricky. It depends, you know, situation. And some of us aren't born, I always say, you know, stress is insidious, but some of us are just not born with the same starting point. You know, if you think of the analogy of a health savings account, some of us are granted lots of health savings from mum and dad if they're healthy, good genetics, good nutrition, happy environment, happy upbringing. And others, the start isn't so great, and then when stress starts drawing on the reserve, just day-to-day living, that's when people go in the red, or they go into that freeze response.
I love the stress goes into the reserves. It's so wise to be mindful and aware of yourself and your body and what's going on with it. I am super mindful. I always run off to my naturopath whenever I'm feeling any sort of something coming on, and I'm like, Simone, I am feeling like I'm just about to get a cold. I'm feeling run down. My energy is low. And then, you know, she'll always help me, or I'll go up to her and say, why is my mood so low lately? What's going on with me? So I love that you talk about the stress goes into your reserves and depletes you in some way, because I can actually feel when that happens.
Yeah. I mean, stress makes a home eventually in our bodies, and that's what chronic illness is. So it's doing whatever you need to do to be aware of that, what that feels like, what the different parts of your nervous system feel like. And I think, you know, just awareness when you can, when you feel more regulated. I don't mean right in the middle of overwhelm or fight, flight response, you're going to learn this stuff. I mean, when you can, it's almost like preventative medicine is to get empowered, is to learn more, befriend your nervous system so you know how to deal with it, how to handle it. And it also, it creates a lot more compassion and kindness for yourself, rather than I shouldn't be feeling this way. It's like, well, you do feel this way, and that's okay, and validate and honor how you feel, and you can still do the deep work and evolve and grow and heal. So it's not running or hiding or distracting or numbing or dissociating from how you mentally and physically feel when we have these experiences. Because a lot of people say, I wish I didn't feel this way, but it's like, but you do, and it's okay, and there's a reason why you do. So validate and honor that. And instead of using the words but, or instead of, or I wish I didn't, it's like, and I can heal. And is a good word to use in situations like this.
So beautiful. It's time for a curveball, Anthea. Are you ready to play?
Yes.
What is your favorite form of self-care?
I'm going to say yoga, because I feel like it did save me, because it's a combination of both flexibility and stretching and very grounded movement, but also you meditate in yoga. And once you're in that yoga flow, that in itself feels like it just recalibrates my nervous system. It just kind of regulates and gets very grounded. I have many, but I would say at the moment that feels good to me, and it's what I did all of last year as much as I could, because I just need to, you know, remind my nervous system this is also how it can operate, and this is a much more balanced and regulated way of operating, rather than going from A to Z of stress or reaction, is to learn how to respond rather than react. So yoga.
So good. And it sounds like you have a very holistic view of recalibrating with a mixture of physical self-care and naturally eating, supplements, foods, mental.
Holistic. Yeah. How do you do one without the other when it all impacts?
I love that because that's my business, whole health. And I talk about all of this sort of stuff. Actually, this weekend we have a physical self care workshop where we just give back to the physical body, which
Yeah.
is exciting with yoga, with
Oh,
meditation, foam rollering, and trigger ball to help
yeah.
get stresses out of the body. So I love that you said that.
Yeah. Yes.
Before we wrap up, can you just run through one of your typical days? What do you do? What do you eat? How do you have rituals? And then what are your top ways for listeners to be able to stay in balance physically and mentally?
I think, one of the big things is for the nervous system to feel safe. Like you need some real anchors during times of stress. And I say be regal with your routines. And so on days that I am consulting, I make sure, like, I'll get up, I walk my puppy, I come back, I make breakfast. If I'm not doing the intermittent fast, I'll have breakfast. I connect with my partner, Paulie, and then go to work, and I prep for the day. I look and see what I've got ahead of me, and I prepare for the day so I'm not in a running by default reactive way, that I'm responding accordingly. I make sure I switch off digital devices so they're not always on, and I choose when they're on. What do I eat? I can eat anything from, like, my whole philosophy is healthy plants, healthy animals, well sourced, well prepared, to optimize nutrition, that they come from the highest quality possible and prepared in a way that helps and supports digestion, gut biome health, that kind of thing. So I could eat anything that is whatever's seasonal, fruit and vegetables, but also cooked according to the seasons. Like, and now, because it's cold here in Sydney in Australia, so lots of broths and soups made from seasonal vegetables and bone stock. Um,
Mm.
what else? I eat lots of lovely eggs, and I'll have poached fruit, and I'll have porridge for breakfast, that kind of thing. And I'll drink herbal teas probably until the cows come home, because I can't help it. And plus, I've got access to all the teas, the A to Z teas, so whatever we fancy and feel like. And in that, I'll go for a long walk, I'll do yoga, there's meditation, but there's lots of work, because there's lots of patient prep and actually seeing patients. Sounds like a lot in a day, but it's not. It's actually quite staggered out. I focus deeply and with minimal distractions. I think for me is part of feeling safe and secure and having a really balanced nervous system, is just to allow myself to dive in deep and spend more time on things rather than going from A to B to C to D and just skimming. I really like the work, I don't know if you know his work, Cal Newport, on deep work, I think, which is focusing intently for longer periods of time to produce much higher quality work. And it's much more nourishing to the nervous system. You're not in this frazzled, reactive state. Like, I can't do that. There is nothing that will pull me back into that state. I've been there, done that, of running a business, a very fast growing business. And I choose to be different.
So beautiful. There's nothing better than feeling well and living well. And
Mm.
it's something that a lot of people are aspiring to. I'm finding a big shift in the world where people do want more wellness in their life. So you're doing amazing things. Thank you for everything that you share on your socials and on your website and everything around the world with what you're doing. Before we go, is there anything that you want to share or add?
I think, yeah, I'm going to keep sharing a lot more about this. I realized how important and people are asking and they're curious, and I think they're learning it in ways they've never heard before. This fight, flight, and then this freeze, overwhelm place, and how to really recalibrate and doing the deeper work. So just, I don't know, follow me and go to my website, because I'm going to be really exploring this and sharing all my learnings.
Thank you. What I'll do is I'll put all of your links in the show notes today. So guys, make sure you like her, you love her, you follow her. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Really beautiful questions. Thank you.
Isn't she just a gem? I love Anthia's energy so much, and I hope you guys loved this episode just as much as I loved chatting with her. During these times of the pandemic and what is going on in the world, I just hope that shedding some light around health and overwhelm and what you can do to help yourself really gives you some tools to help give back to yourself and to make sure that you are looking after yourself. You must prioritize yourself and you must prioritize your health. Thank you times infinity for spending time with me. It really means a lot. Putting yourself first will really help escalate your goals, your dreams, and I love being on the journey with you. So make sure you come and tell me on my Instagram at Whole Health, which is HOL_health, and comment below this podcast photo to share your thoughts on my show today. And if you enjoyed it, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify so that I can keep bringing amazing value to you. I'm sending you truckloads of love, power, and joy. Bye for now.